Hey folks, I'm sure everyone knows I'm a huge fan of sci fi and fantasy books, and so I want to start something new. The last episode of each month on the podcast, I'm now going to start building one of my favorite characters from a fantasy or a sci fi book. And I think this will just be a really fun way of making a character that is made for feel and not for optimization. And in this episode of Dragons and Dice, I'm going to be building my favorite character from any series ever, and that's going to be Kaladin Stormblessesd from the Stormlight Archives. Shout out to Brandon Sanderson. Not that he's listening, but just in case. Thanks for all the great stories, and I love what you do. And I will give full disclosure, this will have spoilers for the Stormlight Archives. So if you haven't read those, just stop now. It's a quick 6,000 page read for the first 5 books. Check those out and then come back to the podcast. All jokes aside, it will have spoilers. So if you haven't finished the last book, pause, go read that first before you check out How to Build Kaladin Stormblessed for your D&D game. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. The way I'm going to structure these builds isn't to be an OP character. There are going to be tons of things I do that are suboptimal and not for just metagame power. I'm going to go to try to capture that character's development through the story of their series or whatever book that they're in and the overall feel of the things that they can do. And I'm going to supplement the characters with magic items to fill in voids where a class feature won't quite fit, but I am going to try to stick to the rules and do that with just 3 attuned items so that if you ever decide to build one of these for like a level 20 or a high level one shot, you can drop in and build one of your favorite fantasy characters. And so I figure for the first time I do this, why not pick Kaladin Stormblessed, because he is my very favorite of all fantasy characters of any novel I've read. And he has a really interesting story arc that I'm going to try to work into the build as he starts off training as a medic under his father and then becomes a soldier and then a slave and then a bridgeman and then a radiant and eventually even becomes a herald. So we're going to get to it. We're going to go 1 to 20, add in some magic items on the way, and see if we can't build the best of the Windrunners, Kaladin Stormblessed. So at level 1, this is a big one because we've got a lot of stuff to get set up and get started as you'll be doing backgrounds and species and all that good jazz. But we're going to start off fighter, and we get 2 skills with that. And I'm going to take persuasion because I think this is going to be important because he is constantly in charge of people and trying to motivate people to do something. And I think that's going to be really fitting for his MO as we build this character. And I'm also going to take survival because even though a lot of things that happen and always go bad, Kaladin always ends up surviving through it. And for our fighting style that we get as a fighter, we're going to go with dueling, as he uses a spear in one hand for the majority of all his fights. And we're using the new 2024 rules for this, so we also get some weapon masteries. And obviously the spear will be one of them. And then the other one, I'm probably going to take a lance, because once we get the ability to fly, it'll be nice to have that extra reach in the sky as he gets a shard spear and, extra reach with that. And so it'll fit right in with the feeling once we get to that ability. And then the third item I'm going to pick is the dart. And that's the one I think I should pick because even though it's not used a lot, I feel like it fits with Kaladin because the first shard bearer he kills, he throws a basic dart through the guy's eye, through shard plate. And I just think it's very fitting that he would have the mastery of that. So those will be the 3 weapon masteries we go with. And then for the background, I'm going to take the soldier background. I would like to have something that was a little more medical based, but you could also go farmer if you wanted to go with that because he kind of grew up in a farming town. But we're going to pick soldier. We're going to get the savage attacker feat with that, which feels pretty good because you get to re-roll dice once a turn, and that's always a good thing because he hits hard throughout the whole book, so that fits right in too. But the 2 things we're going to add with our stat points with that is we're going to put +2 to charisma and +1 to con. And with this, we're also going to get athletics and intimidation as a couple more skills, which feels really on point for Kaladin. For species, and this was kind of the hardest one for me to nail down because there were, he's a human, and so are all the humanoids on Roshar except for the Pershindi. And I just didn't feel like human really fit with the abilities he had. And so what I'm actually going to do for species is I'm going to take and make him a wood elf. And the way I like to think of this is that, like, he's a dark eye, and so he will be a wood elf. And in this, setting that we're building this, the high elves would be what would be considered the light eyes of this campaign. And so I think that gives like a nice little split, plays into the like caste system of the world that he grows up on. And the wood elf is going to fit really well with the abilities that he has. And with wood elf, you get a few spells, which is nice because you get Long Strider, which fits right in because he's really fast and has great endurance. And I picked Charisma as the casting ability for that because we're going to be kind of Charisma and Dex heavy, and I think that's really fitting. And I took Perception as the other skill that you get from that because you get to pick between Insight and Perception as a wood elf. And I think he's really aware and in and out of the battlefield, and I think that just fits. For stats, I took Standard Array. I think it fits with his style really well. He's really well-rounded. So I went an 8th Strength, which that was his dump. He's not really a bruiser, even though he's actually pretty strong. But we went with, he gets 8 there. And then with Dex, we went a 14 and got +2 to that. Con gets a 12 +1. Int goes to 10. Wisdom goes to 13. And Charisma gets to 15. And that's going to play in a little bit later because, like I said, we're not building it for optimization, which is important because, honestly, at level 1, we're really subpar. We have an 8 Strength scat, and we do not have a finesse weapon to attack with because we're using a spear. And honestly, if somebody was building this for level 1, I would let them use their Dex and just make it a finesse-based spear. But that doesn't exist in D&D. It would be nice if there were a few more finesse weapons, but let's face it, we never stay level 1 for very long, so it's okay that we're a little subpar because we're going to fix all that at level 2. And so level 2, we're going Warlock. And we're going to go Pact of the Blade. This is going to be so on point later when we need to be able to just summon a shard weapon at will, which is exactly what you can do with a pact weapon. And for the flavor of this, if I was playing it in a game, I would never summon it until I got to where I felt like I was actually radiant and had the ability to summon a shard spear. So you would just carry a spear around with you. But now that's going to let us use our charisma that we put a 15 in to do all our attacks with. And that's going to work out really nice for us the rest of the way. And as going Warlock, we're going to get a couple of spells and a few cantrips. And this is another one of those situations where we're picking solely for flavor because I'm going to be the first Warlock ever not to take Eldritch Blast. And so I'm only taking spells and cantrips that are on the Stormblessesd flavor. So for the cantrips, I'm going to take Blade Ward. I think it fits great because he's so hard to hit, and it's a good place for you to use your concentration on early levels. And then I'm going to take Create Bonfire for the other one because it's really hard to make soup if you don't have a fire, and that's going to be important later too. And for our 2 first level spells, I'm going to go with Armor of Agathis, and I'm going to flavor that like it's the wind that flows around me and that makes me, have extra health and all that. And so it's like the wind that's bolstering me. And, it's like he's in a dance with his spear. And then for the other one, I'm going to take Protection from Good and Evil because first and foremost, Windrunners are protectors. Now at level 3, we're going to go back to Fighter, and we will sit here until we are basically done with the first book. So in here we get the normal fighter stuff, action surge, which is always great. And at level 4, we'll be a Fighter 3. And for the subclass, I'm going Battle Master. I like to think this is the point where Kaladin's leading the troops, and he's there being the protector that he is, and he fights his first shard bearer here. And the Battle Master just really fits with that. And when we become a Battle Master, we get another skill here, and I'm going to take Acrobatics. I think it plays right in with all the crazy cool stuff that he can do. And then for artisan tools, I think it has to be Alchemist Supplies because he has medical training, and that just kind of plays in with him being able to be a field medic, treat people, and later when he's with his bridge crew, they like gather plants and can make salves out of it. And I think it's really going to work well. And then for the maneuvers that we're going to pick, I'm going to take Bait and Switch, and that one gives you the ability to swap places with someone that's there by you and add your superiority die to your armor class for the turn. And so that's really nice as it makes him a good protector. And I think this is him like jumping out in the front, protecting his people. The other one I'm going to take is Rally, and it's for the same reason. You're bolstering your troops. And then the third one that I'm going to take is Precision Attack, because when it really matters, Kaladin never misses. And then at this point, we're going to get our first attuned item, and that's going to come in the form of a tattoo. I feel like this is the point in the book where Amram steals Kaladin's shard plate and kills all his troops, and he gets branded a slave and sold into slavery and forced to become a bridgeman later on. And he is branded with a slash gif across his forehead that he can never take off until way, way later. And I think for that, we're going to go with the Lifewell tattoo. It'll give us resistance to necrotic damage, and it'll make us harder to kill, as in once a day when we would be hit and taken to 0 HP, we'll instead drop to 1. And I just think it's fitting and ties right in with the flavor, because he wouldn't be Kaladin if he didn't have the tattoo. So at level 5, we'll be a fighter 4, and we get a feat. And for this one, I'm going with Inspiring Leader, because that way we can boost our charisma for 1. That's going to be a nice in-game play. And we can also motivate our allies for the upcoming fights, and that's something that Kaladin does throughout all the books. And in D&D, that's going to come in the form of temp HP equal to our charisma mod plus our level. So that's plus 8 right now for up to 6 people at a rest, and that's really nice, and I think it plays right in with the flavor that we're going for here. And then at level 6, we'll be a fighter 5, and with that, we get extra attack, and that's, what everyone's looking for. It's a pity we had to put it off for 1 level, but we needed to get to be attack with our charisma, so it's a price we had to pay. And we also get tactical shift here, which gives us even more evasion, and I think that fits great with Kaladin because he is so wily with a spear. So at level 7, I feel like this is where Kaladin would be taking his second oath, and to symbolize that, we're going back to Warlock for another dip, and this is going to be so much fun. We get 2 more Eldritch Invocations here, and we're going to go with Pact of the Chain, and that way we can summon a familiar. And when you go Pact of the Chain, the familiar can look like different things, and one of those is a sprite, and that is what we are always going to be choosing, and it's going to be a wind sprite, and we can now say hello to Sylphrina, our Spren. And for the other one, we're going to grab up Lessons of the Firstborn, and with this, we'll get to tie into his medical training, because I'm going to take the Healer feat here as the origin feat, and it just fits right with him being able to tend to the bridgeman's wounds, and like I was saying earlier, making salves, and all the great things that he does as a healer throughout the books too. At level 8, we're staying Warlock, and here we get a patron, and for this, I'm going to go with the Celestial Patron, and it's going to be our Spren. That's how we're going to flavor this, and I just think that Warlock works so well with a Knight Radiant, because you have another entity that you are in a relationship with that is giving you power, and then having the familiar there, it's like it's always with you and helping you on the battlefield, even though it's also powering you from inside. And I just think that is so on point for basically all Radiants. I think would be like a good Warlock build would be a good way to build any Radiant from the Stormlight Archives. But we also get some other nice abilities for going Celestial Patron, and we get the ability to just heal ourselves with Stormlight. Oh wait, I mean a set of dice, and we're going to get a set of D6s that we can use as a bonus action to heal us. And then we also get a good set of healing and support spells with this. And I was going to say, if you also get a couple range spells, but Kaladin doesn't really ever cast spells. So I would just forego anything that was like a cast long range spell, and I would only use support spells or something that like increased my capabilities, because that's kind of what Stormlight does for you, is makes you bigger, better, stronger, and that's how I'd play that. I would never throw a spell out. So we do get a couple more spells here. I feel like a couple of them are right on point. I'm going to take Hold Person and Earthbind, and the reason for this is it's going to be like a lashing, like you froze that person in place with Stormlight, or you've bound that flying person to the ground, and I just think it fits right in with all the flavor that we're looking for. And at 9, we're going to go Warlock 4, and here we get another feat. And for this, I'm going to take Defensive Duelist, and we get to bump Dex a point, and we also get to parry proficiency bonus a day, and that just feels really good. We're unarmored. We're not wearing anything but light armor at this point, or just unarmored with Dex boost only. So it's really important that Kaladin can be fast, and he can use his Battlemaster maneuvers and his feats to keep from getting hit as much. I feel like this is the point where Kaladin's really coming into his own. Dalinar's freed him from being a bridgeman, and he's starting to become Radiant, and we need the ability to fly. And for that, since we're fighter and warlock and we aren't getting high enough to get the fly spell, we're going to need a magic item to fill that void for this class to really feel like Kaladin does. And so for that, we're going to just take the good old Boots of Flying. It's a tuned item, gives you the ability to fly for a good little chunk each day. And I think it's fitting that it kind of has a wear out on it, because if you run out of Stormlight, you can't be flying. And I think it fits right in with our build here. So at this point, my second attuned item for Kaladin is going to be Boots of Flying. And at level 10, we're going to jump back to fighter, and we're going to stay there for the next 6 levels. And I think this is when Kaladin's really coming into his battle prowess as a fighter, and he's on the Shattered Plains, and he's fighting the Pershindi and doing all the crazy stuff he does, catching Dalinar out of the sky. And so at 10, we're going to be a fighter 6, and we get another feat here. And for this, I'm going to take Charger. That gives us a little bit of extra damage, and I think it fits on point because we're always like flying in super fast into the fray. And now that gives us that when we've moved, we get to do extra damage because we have momentum. And we get to bump our dexterity another point here, which is starting to make us really dexterous. We're up to 18 now, getting into a pretty good spot there. At level 11, we get more Battle Master maneuvers. And I feel like at this point, these should be offensive, as Kaladin is kind of becoming the man on the battlefield right now. And so we're going to take Disarming Attack, which does just what it says. You get to knock their weapon out of their hand, and Lunging Attack, as it works really well with the flavor we're going for. You're super mobile, spilled-wielding terror on the battlefield at this point. At level 12, we're a fighter 8, and we get another feat. And I think the best thing we can do right here is just max that dex out to 20. Gives us extra armor class and all kinds of good things with dex saves. So we'll just go with that. And then at level 13, we're fighter 9. We get Tactical Master and Indomitable, which I would flavor the Indomitable as I'm pushing Stormlight into my body as I fail to save, and using that to overcome the magic effect that I failed the first time. And Tactical Master is really going to let you push slower sap. Really easy to flavor those as they're part of your lashings. Is now your spear, you can sap that guy and he's got disadvantage because his arm slowed down, or you're pushing that guy as you've lashed him backwards, and just get to flavor all those weapon masteries that you get as a fighter as part of your Stormlight abilities and lashings. And I think it'd be a really fun character to play like that in a game. At level 14, we're a fighter 10, and here we get 2 more battle masteries. I'm going to go with Trip Attack and Riposte, as we're just so good with the spear now and with our lashings and flying around that when people miss, we get to follow up with an attack. And then at level 15, we're a fighter of 11, and we've hit our offensive peak. We can attack 3 times now when we take the attack action. I feel like this is when we've set our 4th oath. There's been the big fight, and we're now a full Radiant with plate armor that we can summon. And this is going to bring us to our 3rd attuned item. And for that 3rd item, we're going to have to do something a little special to hit that flavor that we want. Now it's time for the homebrewed item of the week. This week's homebrewed item is going to be the Ring of Shield Other. And what this ring allows you to do is you can cast as a reaction the shield spell on someone else that's other than you within 60 feet of you. And that's going to increase their AC by 5 for the rest of that turn. And this will have 6 charges in it and recharge 1d6 each morning at dawn. And the flavor for this on our Kaladin Stormblessesd build is going to be that he just got his shard plate, and like when he's fighting in the tower and people are getting attacked, he can send his shard plate out, encase people in it, and protect them. And this is going to be our homebrewed item for Kaladin because he doesn't wear his plate a whole lot, but he uses it plenty to protect others. And I think it just fits so well with the flavor we're going for. I feel like that kind of concludes Kaladin's life as a fighter. And now we're going to move into the 5th book, and we're going to finish our career as a bard. So at level 16, we're a fighter 11, we're a warlock 4, and now we're a bard 1. And we get an instrument. And what Wit taught us was to use the flute. And so that's a no brainer for what we're taking as the instrument that we play. And the skill that we're going to get, it's got to be performance as we tell stories and teach now. And that's kind of what we're going to be aiming for. We also get a couple of cantrips and 4 spells as a bard. And we're going to be taking prestidigitation because that'll help with our storytelling, and minor illusion that fits right in. Also, is like Wit told the story where he makes the smoke dance and all the cool stuff that Wit does when he tells a story, and that's what Kaladin's trying to get to as he starts to travel with Zeth out to Shinovar to see what's happening with the Herald there that's kind of running amok, and all the stuff that they have to do there on that side with Zeth. So we also get 4 level 1 spells at this point too. I'm going to grab Featherfall because, I mean, you're Kaladin. You can't really be knocked out of the sky. It seems fitting. I'm going to take Fairy Fire, as when you cast it on something, it would look like they were infused with Stormlight and make it easy for you to see them. And then I would probably take Dissonant Whispers here, as it lets you play a melody into someone's mind. And that seems very fitting, as Kaladin's kind of trying to become more of like Roshar's first psychologist, which is really cool. I think it was a great flavor for it. And so, plus that does a little bit of psychic damage, which, let's face it, when someone whispers the truth into your brain, it's psychic damage. So at level 17, we're going to be a bard too, and we get expertise twice. So let's just lean into our music now. We're going to, work on playing every day on the flute while we're traveling out here. And I'm going to take Persuasion, as it makes people more likely to listen to me as Kaladin's trying to do his thing and reach Zeth and like get into him and like help him heal. And then we're also going to take Performance. I also really like that you get Jack of all trades here, as this is when Kaladin really becomes a more complete person in his journey. He learns to forgive himself and move forward in his life and realize that he doesn't have to be perfect to help others and doesn't have to defend everyone, that he can still try, and that's enough. And I think Jack of all trades really plays in nicely as a bard for that, as it's like he's growing as a human by trying to help others. And I just love the flavor of that. At 18, we're bard 3, and we get a subclass here. And I'm going to go with the new dance bard, because one of the things Kaladin does really a lot is he uses his spear katas as meditation. And I just like the flavor of like he's out here now and he's not fighting anymore, but he's still working out with the spear because it gives him peace of mind. And I think Dance Bard works really well with that. We also get some second level spells here. I'm going to grab Calm Emotions and Detect Thoughts. These play into our new role as like an emotional sport badass, because that's kind of what we are. We're still out there, dueling with heralds and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but we're trying to help people heal as we go. And the other feature we get with this is really nice, because now we get unarmored defense, and it's our dex plus our charisma, so it's making us even more evasive, and we're still growing in that way. At level 19, we're a bard 4, and we would get a normal feat, but now we get epic boons. I went with speed. We can boost our con 1 point, and then we get that extra 30 speed, and we can now take disengage as a bonus action if we want to. I think it just really fits with how quick and agile Kaladin is for him to have a massive speed score. And finally, at level 20, we're a bard 5, which gives us Fountain of Inspiration, and we also get 2 level 3 spells. And for this, I'm going to take Dispel Magic, and I'm going to flavor that like I'm just touching something that's magical and sucking the stormlight out of it. And for the second one, I'm going to take Feign Death, as when Ashar makes Kaladin a herald, part of it is that his mortal body dies and is left there for Zeth to find, but Kaladin doesn't actually. And so I feel like Feign Death is really the last spell that Kaladin Stormblessed ever cast. So that's my take on Kaladin from level 1 to 20. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I thought this was a really fun exercise to build a D&D character for just characters that you like, without worrying so much about the optimization, but trying to really capture like their story and the feel that they would have in game. And I think this went pretty well. I would be super happy to play this character. We've got a good chunk of support spells. we've got all the fun Radiant flavor with our sprint as a familiar and being able to summon our weapon at will as a packed weapon. We got crazy good maneuverability with all the extra speed we have, and we're very evasive with our Battle Master maneuvers and our defensive duelist feats. And I just feel like it would be a really fun character to play if you were doing like a build a superhero level 21 shot. To build one that wasn't just made to be a monster, was made to be someone that you would really like to see in a D&D game, because how cool would it be to be like, hey, I'm out here and I'm playing Kaladin tonight on my D&D table. That sounds like an absolute blast to me. And I know they're about to come out with a Brandon Sanderson and Cosmere TT RPG, and I'm super stoked about it. But we still have D&D, and that's always going to be a staple in my life, I think. So this is my take on Kaladin Stormblessesd for the new D&D material. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Like I said at the start, I'm going to do one of these as the last episode each month, as I really enjoy building characters. It's one of my favorite things to do in D&D, and I think it's interesting to see what kind of takes people have for how would you put so-and-so on a D&D game. I would love to hear from y'all. If anyone has characters that they just love, shoot me an email. I'll see if I can't build one, and we'll see if we can't get that on one of the podcast episodes. And as always, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. Thanks for tuning in and spending your time listening to me go on about my favorite TTRPG, Dungeons and Dragons. And like always, anytime you could leave a review, a follow, or a like wherever you get your podcast, it'd be greatly appreciated, as it helps with exposure of a new show. We're also now on Instagram. You can check us out in the link below. And until next time, may your DMs be kind, may your D20s roll high. Bye.